Hello, my good friends. Welcome. I hope you're having a good day and a good week. It is September. Autumn is nearly upon us. It seems like the summer has gone by like a blink. But it is wonderful to see the seasons change and the fruit come on the trees and the bushes. Our tree in the garden is full of plums. So many plums and such delicious fruit. I can taste the sunshine inside. I've made 2 lots of jam. The plum wine is now in the demijohn, and I've given some away to neighbours and friends. It is glorious. I am so thankful to the plum tree. I've been learning how to scythe. I went on a volunteering day at the local wildflower meadow where we learned how to use a scythe, which was amazing. And so a kind man from the village lent me his scythe, so I've been using it in the garden and having fun with it. It's a lot of hard work, but it's also fantastic. Really great. And so for you, I have a short story, a short folk tale today from across Europe. There's a Norwegian version, there's a Bulgarian version, and I've told it a couple of times before. It is humorous and it is light, and it has an important element to it. I hope you like it. It's known as husband and wife in Bulgaria, and it's known as the husband who stayed at home in Norway. I hope you like it. Once upon a time, in a little house in a village not far away from where you live, there was a man and his wife, and they had a small baby, a toddler, a baby that knew how to crawl but not quite how to walk. And one day, in the middle of this time of year, towards the late summer, when the meadows are cut down and the hay is made and the sun is still hot upon in the sky, enough to make your brow full of sweat and your heart beat quick. The man came home angry, complaining, tired. Nothing tasted right for him that day. Something was too hot. The bread was too tough. The water was not cold enough. The child was not quiet enough. Whatever it was, he couldn't keep the tongue still in his mouth. Complaining, grumbling. His wife looked at him for a while. This is not the first time he had complained. But this time round, she didn't sit in silence. "You think you could do the work of the house better than I?" she asked. "Well, of course," said the man. "Any man can do the work better than you at the house. What is there to do?" he said. "Мъжкото тегло никъде го няма. Цял ден се блъска из полето, ори земята, копай, тичай по воловете. I work at the field all day, my back always hurting. I plough the field, I dig the soil, I run after the oxen. А слънцето пече, да прегаря. Устата ти се пука от жажда. Да се седи и да се шета дома на сянка. In the shade at home. How wonderful would that be," he said. "Well then," his wife said, smiling knowingly. "Tomorrow, let's switch our tasks. I'll go with the mowers and mow the hay. You stay here and do the housework." The husband nodded and agreed at once. How hard could it be? All she did was sit at home, make a little bread, make a little butter, make a little dinner, feed the little child. How hard could it be? He had known hard work. And so the following day, before the sun rose, both the husband and the wife got up. She was excited for her day ahead. She got to see the world. She got to go in the field, whistling as the sun was rising. The birds were singing. The insects were buzzing. She took the scythe on her shoulder and she left. Upon walking through the door, she turned and she said to her husband, "Now, don't forget to feed the baby, to make the bread, to make the dinner, to feed the chickens, to milk the cow, and to pasture her." "Very well," said the husband, and he began to do the work. Now, the first thing that he needed to do in order to cook the dinner and make the bread was make the fire. So he went to the fireplace and began kindling the fire, poking it here and poking it there, but he hadn't made fire for such a long time. And so, in a matter of minutes, the whole front room of the house was filled with smoke. He could feel himself coughing, black smoke everywhere. "Oh, this won't do," he said, while he was coughing and spluttering and filling the whole house with smoke. The cow herder who pastured his cow every day went past the house, and he waited a while, but when the cow wasn't there for him to take, he thought that his services weren't needed. He passed through the house into the other side of the village, up onto the hill. By that time, the sun was rising higher into the sky, and the man thought, "Oh, I forgot about the cow." So he left the fire as it was, and he went into the barn and took the cow himself to the field to pasture. By the time he came back, the fire was so strong that it nearly burned the house down. The man tried what he could to bring the flames down, but when nothing was working, he got some water and threw it all over the fire. "Oh," he thought, "that was close." Well, it was nearly midday by then. He hadn't churned the butter, he hadn't made the bread. He decided to churn the butter first, to have for their dinner. He had a bit of cream, and he began to beat the butter in the churner. Such hard work, he thought. He wasn't expecting that it took such a long time to do, and, well, he churned a while, and he hadn't quite finished the butter, but he decided to start making the bread. A bit of a break. Bread. How hard could it be? He put the flour, he put the water, he took the yeast, and he began to knead the dough. Knead it this way, knead it that way, and nothing was happening. This bowl of dough, hitting it there and hitting it here, and he over-kneaded it, and it didn't rise. Maybe I should leave the bread, he thought, to rest. And then he remembered he hadn't fed the chickens. They were making an awful noise outside in the yards. And when he went there, all dozens of chicks were running around the yard. It took him such a long time to gather them all together. And, aha, he thought. Mashki mozek bardzo myśli. Brilliant idea, he thought. A man's idea. He took a piece of string and he tied all the legs of the little chicks to the mother hen. That way, he thought, they're not going to go anywhere. And he put some grain on the yard and he went back home to check his bread, to check his butter. But nothing had advanced. The butter, not quite butter, still cream, sat there. The dough hadn't risen. And he felt a bit thirsty. But a glass of wine would do good. So he went down to the cellar, and as he pulled the tap from the wine, he heard a terrible noise. And with the tap still in his hand, he ran up the stairs, and there he saw the pig in the kitchen. What is going on? And as he looked, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. There the pig had knocked the whole churn down and was licking the cream, and he was eating the whole of the dough. Oh no, thought the man. No, and then he heard a noise down in the basement. He looked at his hand, and there was the tap still in there. So he ran down the stairs, and as he ran down, he saw that the whole of the basement was flooded from the wine, and there was no wine left in the barrel. Again, he heard a terrible noise upstairs, and he went to see the pig he beat out of the house, and there the baby he had completely forgotten about, had crawled across the kitchen and was eating the cream and licking it until nothing was left. He took the baby, roughly, started shouting at the baby, and of course the child cried. Ah, he thought, there is no bread, there is no butter. He was just about to go and get the last of the cream. He heard a terrible noise. What now, he thought, and he ran outside into the yard. And there, as he looked up into the sky, all the chicks and the hen were screeching. His eyes followed the fluttering wings and the screeching beaks, and up into the heavens he could see the huge, towering wings of a golden eagle who had in his talons the chicks and the mother hen, and up they went, nowhere to be found again. He thought to get some more cream, but he hadn't milked the cow that morning. The poor cow with heavy, painful udders up on the field. He didn't have time to gather her back down. The child crying. No butter, no cream, no bread. He went to try and make some stew on the fire from what grain they had in the larder, but there was no fire. Meanwhile, the wife had mowed 7 lengths and 7 breadths of the hayfield. She met other people. She whistled to herself. The sun was hot. That's true. And it was hard work, but nothing harder than she had known all her life. At lunchtime, many of the wives of the husbands who worked the field came to give them lunch. And the woman who was working at the field looked at them, winked at them, and they smiled. Nothing else was said. Time went, and the sun was up in the sky and began descending back down, and she was expecting her husband to call her for dinner. But no call appeared. Her husband didn't come to fetch her. So at last, she gave her goodbyes and she went off to their home. When she got there, the yard was silence. There was no chickens, no hen, no cow. She stood there in the kitchen, with her hands on her waist, looking around, questioning her husband. Де квачката и пилците? An eagle took them. Upečili chleba. The pig ate it. Ами меслото? Какво масло, said the husband. What butter? It all went down on the floor. Did you make a stew on the fire? Huh. Не виждаш ли, he began to shout at her. Не виждаш ли, че скрица огън няма в огнището? I've cooked nothing with no fire. Oh, husband, she said. You've done woman's work very well, she said. Don't worry. Tomorrow you'll do it better. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow. There'll be no tomorrow, he said. You'll not be going out with the mowers again tomorrow. Why not? You agreed to it yesterday. What changed your mind? Do you think that the work in the house is too hard? No. If you can do it, anybody can do it. Well then, she said. They argued all night long. Who should go where? Who should stay here? She changed the child into new clothes, milked the poor cow, and fed the baby some milk. In that time, the husbands went home and told their wives about the curious incident out in the field. A woman with the size What a thing to notice, what a thing to happen. It has never been seen before. Maybe we should stay at home, the men said. Do women's work at home, you go out in the field. And the wives, well, they listened and they smiled. And one by one they began to talk, until in that village it was known that men could stay at home and women can go in the field. And so an arrangement was made. And some say that in some houses the husbands stayed at home the whole time. And in the rare occasions where their wives cooked for them again, they never said a complaint, for they knew that their hard work that had gone into preparing a meal and all the other housework that is silent and unseen and received with ungratefulness. But not from that moment on. In other houses, the women stayed at home, for the men could not cope with all that had to be done. But they too learned how to be more thankful. And in some houses, it was arranged that the women and the men would split the work equally, 3 days in the field, 3 days in the house. And those they say, were the happiest of houses, where there was a lot more to talk about over dinner, a lot more laughter, more appreciation of what it took to do the work at home. But more importantly, because of that house, and because of a decision of that wife who did not stay silent, the whole village saw a change that it had never seen before. And from that day forward, women's work was never taken in vain ever again. I love that story. I've told it at a women's gathering before, and there was knowing looks and laughter across. It is an important story, and I'm glad that it's so humorous because it makes the listening much more possible. There are so many people across the world who do silent work and unrecognized work for free. And I think this is why the story is so important. The work at home is as difficult as the work in the field, and is as important and as legitimate, but it is not always recognized. Not today, and certainly not for the last few hundred years. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and feel free to share it with whoever you think might need to hear it. And if you enjoy this podcast, remember to subscribe, as it helps other people find it, and you'll never miss an episode when they come out. If you enjoy it, feel free to leave me a 5-star review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. and share it on your social media. I love to hear the ways that you listen to your podcast, what you're doing, where you're walking, and it helps other people to discover it. I hope to see you again soon, and I have a few events coming up where we'll be looking at the different stories. One is a Wild Women's event, a 6-month course, and the other one is a Baba Yaga event in the early part of the year. And then I also have a workshop around Prince Lindworm at the end of September. And the free monthly gatherings to discuss episodes from the podcast are still very much happening. Have a look at the events page of my website, and I hope to see you at a future one. I wish you a wonderful month, and thank you for joining me in the Story Apothecary podcast. Thank you to In Feathers for the beautiful music as always.